There's a silence in the heart of the wise, not the silence of indifference, not the silence of defeat, but the silence that comes when all blame dissolves and all that's left is truth. Blame is the easiest thing in the world. We learn it early, before we can walk, before we can speak clearly. Pointing the finger feels natural. It lets us say, I am not the cause. That over there is why I suffer. We blame our parents for not loving us right. We blame our partners for not seeing us clearly. We blame our jobs, the government, the past, even the weather. And when we run out of people to blame, we blame ourselves, often with a quiet cruelty no one else sees. But the wise, they move differently. They walk into storms and don't curse the rain. They face betrayal and don't call for revenge. They fall, they bleed, they hurt, just like everyone else. But they don't point fingers, because they've seen something deeper. They've seen the mirror. The world to the wise is not an enemy. It is not a random machine designed to hurt or help. It is not chaos. It is not cruel. It is a mirror. Whatever arises, joy or sorrow, praise or blame, gain or loss, it reflects something. Not always a direct cause, not always fair, but always real, always revealing. They've learned that what disturbs the heart most isn't what happens. It's how we see it. One person loses a job and curses life. Another loses the same job and begins again, quietly, purposefully. Same event, different eyes. The difference is wisdom. The mind loves stories. It clings to narratives where there's a villain and a victim. It makes us the wounded hero in every chapter, but wisdom asks something harder. It asks us to pause the story, to set down the script, to stop asking, who hurt me, and begin asking, what is life trying to teach me here? That's the turning point. That's when growth begins. There's an old Zen teaching. When the finger points to the moon, don't look at the finger, look at the moon. Blame is the finger. It points endlessly. It points at the past. It points at others. Sometimes it turns inward, becoming shame, but it never touches peace. The wise no longer stare at the finger. They look at the moon and they see this. Everything is cause and effect. Everything is unfolding from what came before. And yet, everything is offering a doorway out of suffering if we choose to step through it. Let me tell you a story. A monk once lived in a small mountain village. Quiet, gentle, loved by all. One day, a young woman in the village became pregnant. When her parents demanded to know the father, afraid of shame, she cried out. It was the monk. The parents, furious, stormed to the monastery and accused him. And the monk, calm and still, simply replied, "Is that so?" He was cast out, disgraced, forced to raise the child in a small hut, begging for food. Years passed. Then one day the young mother, now overwhelmed with guilt, confessed the truth. It wasn't the monk. The family returned, ashamed, and begged for forgiveness. And the monk simply said, "Is that so?" He took no pride in being right, no anger for being wronged, no story about how cruel life had been. He had nothing to blame because he had nothing to protect. His peace didn't depend on being seen or understood or treated fairly. It came from something else. A stillness that can't be shaken by praise or blame, win or loss, rise or fall. That stillness is the fruit of seeing clearly. To live without blame doesn't mean to accept injustice. It doesn't mean to stay silent in the face of abuse. But it does mean this. We respond from awareness, not reactivity. We act from clarity, not resentment. We stand for truth, not from a place of wounded ego, but from the knowing that every life is fighting battles unseen. When you let go of blame, you begin to see with new eyes. You see that the person who hurt you was hurting. You see that the moment that broke you was trying to open you. You see that life isn't something happening to you, it's something happening through you. And that mirror, that quiet mirror the wise always look into, it shows the only person you can truly change, yourself. There's an extraordinary power in asking this one question. If I don't blame anyone, what else is possible? Try it. In the next argument, the next disappointment, the next painful memory that rises, pause and hold it up to the mirror. Don't look away. Don't reach for the old story. Just ask, what part of me is being shown here? What can I learn right now? Because every blame you drop becomes a piece of freedom gained. And piece by piece, the world starts to soften, not because it changes, but because you do. The wise blame no one, not because they are passive, but because they are awake. They have traded the weight of blame for the lightness of presence. They have seen the mirror, and in it, they have found themselves. We all carry a storyteller within us, a voice that narrates our lives day and night. It weaves meaning into moments, builds heroes and villains, shapes us into the center of every plot. But what we rarely question is, who's writing the script? And if we listen closely, we'll hear a pattern, one that shows up every time we feel slighted, misunderstood, overlooked, or wronged. It whispers, "They did this to me. It's not my fault. I'm the victim here." This is the blame game, and its author is the ego. The ego doesn't seek truth, it seeks identity. It doesn't ask, what is real? It asks, how do I stay in control? And control for the ego often means deflecting pain, projecting discomfort, creating enemies real or imagined so it never has to face the mirror. Because when something goes wrong, someone must be at fault. And if it's not me, it must be you, or them, or life itself. This is how the ego survives. It thrives in separation. It grows by division. But here's the secret. The more enemies it finds, the more lost we become. Let's be honest, it feels good to blame. It gives us a rush of moral superiority. It protects us from the raw vulnerability of looking inward. It turns every conflict into a courtroom with us in the judge's seat, delivering verdicts from behind the walls of our pain. But those walls, they don't protect, they imprison. Every time we blame, we tighten the knot of the self. The me that needs to be right, the me that needs to be defended. And in that tightness, there's no room for truth, only reaction, only fear. Have you ever watched your mind in the middle of an argument? Notice how fast it gathers evidence, how quickly it builds a case, like a lawyer preparing for war, pulling past wounds, sharp words, half-remembered moments, all to prove one thing: I'm not the one to blame. But in that courtroom, nobody wins. The truth gets buried beneath emotion. Connection dies, and the ego walks away victorious and alone. The Buddha taught that the root of suffering is ignorance, not knowing the true nature of the self, and the ego's greatest ignorance is this: believing it is separate from others, that you are over there, and I am over here, and whatever pain I feel must be caused by something outside of me. But what if that's not true? What if the conflict isn't between me and you, but between awareness and illusion? What if the enemy we keep fighting is a shadow cast by our own unhealed self? There's a reason the wise don't play the blame game. Not because they never feel pain, not because they are above human emotion, but because they've looked underneath it. They've seen that blame is a mask, and beneath the mask is fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of not being enough, fear of being unseen, unloved, unsafe. So instead of blaming, they listen. They listen to the ache beneath the anger. They listen to the tightness in the chest. They listen to the part of themselves that's still learning how to be whole. And in that listening, they dissolve the enemy. You see, the ego is loud, but truth is soft. It doesn't yell. It doesn't argue. It waits patiently beneath the noise. And when we stop defending ourselves, when we stop needing to be right, when we finally stop pointing fingers, that truth begins to speak. It says, this pain isn't your fault, but it's your responsibility. You are not the victim, you are the student. There are no enemies here, only mirrors. Think of the people you've blamed most in your life, the ones whose names still tighten your stomach. What if they weren't enemies, but messengers? Messengers sent not to hurt you, but to reveal the parts of you still waiting to be healed. The wise don't avoid pain, they study it. They sit with it like an old friend. They ask, what are you trying to show me? And from that question, clarity arises. The moment we stop making people into enemies, we start becoming whole again. Every time you're tempted to blame, pause before the words leave your lips, before the story spins in your mind, before the old wound gets retold. Just pause, breathe, and ask, what is the ego trying to protect right now? What would it feel like if I didn't need to defend myself? What if I just let go? You may be surprised at how quickly the story dissolves when you stop needing to be the hero in it. The ego finds enemies. The heart finds lessons. Wisdom finds peace. You get to choose, every moment, which one you follow. Sometimes life feels like a puzzle missing too many pieces. Why do good people suffer? Why do painful things happen without warning? Why does kindness go unnoticed, while cruelty often gets rewarded? In moments like these, the mind demands answers, and when it can't find them, it turns to blame, on people, on fate, on God, on life itself. But the wise don't ask who's to blame. They ask something deeper. What is the hidden cause? What chain of conditions brought this into being? Because they know there are no isolated moments. There are no random storms. Everything unfolds from something else. This is the law of karma. Karma is not punishment. Karma is not justice. It's not a cosmic system of reward and revenge. Karma simply means cause and effect. Nothing more, nothing less, like planting a seed in the soil. If you water it, protect it, and give it light, it grows, not because the universe favors you, not because you deserve it, but because that's just the nature of the seed. In the same way, every thought, every word, every action is a seed planted in the field of consciousness, and whether or not we remember planting it, it grows all the same. The pain you feel today may not be a punishment. It might just be the fruit of an old seed planted long ago, maybe in this life, maybe in another, but it was never random. And when you see this, really see it, blame starts to fall apart, because how can you blame the rain when it's falling from clouds you helped create? How can you blame another when both of you are dancing through karma neither of you fully understand? There's a story told in the old texts about a man whose house was swept away in a flood. He lost everything, his land, his family, his future. In his anguish, he fell to his knees and cried out, "Why me? What have I done to deserve this?" A wandering monk found him and said gently, "You are not being punished, my friend. You are being shown the truth that clinging to impermanence is always painful." At first, the man grew angry, but over time, those words began to settle into his heart. And in that space, he began to rebuild, not from bitterness, but from understanding. That's what karma reveals. Not just how we got here, but how to walk forward with wisdom. Seeing the bigger picture means this. We stop living only from this moment and start living through it. We stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and begin asking, "What chain am I a part of? What thoughts am I thinking today that may become my reality tomorrow? What actions am I taking that are shaping someone else's future?" We begin to see that we are not just victims of karma, we are also its authors, and that's where the power lies. Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a vast river. The current is strong. You didn't choose its direction. You didn't create its flow. It's the result of countless rains, landslides, melting snow, events far upstream beyond your memory. But here you are, in the river. You can't change what's upstream, but you can change how you move now. You can resist and be pulled under. You can panic and blame the current, or you can learn to flow with awareness, to adjust your position, to read the water, to plant seeds along the banks, so the next traveler may walk more safely. That is karmic wisdom. The ego hates this view. It doesn't like complexity. It wants someone to point at. It wants to shout, "This is unfair." But the wise see that fairness isn't the measure. Understanding is. When we understand karma, we stop asking life to be fair and start asking how we can be awake. Because when you see cause and effect clearly, even the most painful moments become teachers. Even heartbreak becomes humbling. Even failure becomes fuel for growth. And even your worst enemy becomes someone you once harmed and now have the chance to forgive. So next time something difficult enters your life, try not to rush to blame, pause, breathe, and ask gently, what seeds might have brought this fruit? What part of me is being shaped by this? How can I plant differently now? Because karma is not destiny. It's not fixed. It's fluid. It's living. It's shifting in every moment, depending on the awareness you bring to it. The same storm can flood one man's house and water another's field. The difference is not in the rain, but in how they prepared. To see karma is to see with the eyes of time. It's to know that nothing happens in isolation. No joy, no sorrow, no encounter, no ending. And once you see that, you no longer ask life to give you what you want. You ask life to show you what you need to awaken. Because everything, every moment, every person, every experience is part of the greater weaving. Not punishment, not reward, just the unfolding of what has been planted and the beginning of what can be. Let the chain stop with you. Let awareness break the loop. Let compassion guide the next step, because when you see karma clearly, you begin to walk wisely. There's a strange comfort in being the victim, a dark warmth in saying, "Look what they did to me," a safety in believing this pain is not my fault. And in a way, it's true. Many wounds in this life were not chosen. You didn't ask to be betrayed. You didn't invite the injustice. You didn't deserve the loss. But the real question is not whether you were hurt. The real question is, what will you become because of it? Because pain is inevitable. Victimhood is a choice. The victim says, "They broke me. I can't move forward because of them. I'll be free when they apologize, when they change, when the past disappears." But waiting for the past to fix itself is like standing in the rain and waiting for the clouds to ask for forgiveness. The wise know freedom doesn't come when others change. It comes when you do. Let's be honest. Victimhood gives us something. It gives us attention. It gives us an identity. It gives us a story we can hold like a shield. I am the one who was wronged. I am the one who was hurt. But here's the hidden cost. That story becomes a home. And even if the home is burning, we stay, because to leave it would mean stepping into the unknown. It would mean letting go of being right, letting go of being seen, letting go of the pain we've built our identity around. There's a strange way the mind clings to suffering, not because it enjoys the pain, but because it fears what comes after. Who will I be if I stop blaming them? What will I hold on to if I release the past? What happens when I'm no longer the victim? For many, there is silence there, and that silence feels like death. But it's not death, it's rebirth. You see, blame keeps the wound open. Every time we replay the story, every time we tell it again, every time we gather sympathy like bandages, we stop the healing. Because healing doesn't happen when we point to the one who hurt us. It happens when we finally ask, what part of me is still bleeding? What belief have I built around this pain? Who would I be if I no longer needed to suffer? The ego says, hold on to the pain, it proves you were right. But wisdom says, let go of the pain, you don't need to prove anything anymore. There's an old story of a man who was shot with an arrow. He was in agony, but instead of removing it, he spent all his time asking, who shot me? Why me? What kind of bow did they use? Was it intentional? Was the archer cruel? And while he searched for answers, he bled. This is how most people live, more concerned with who's to blame than with how to heal. The wise don't waste time pointing. They pull out the arrow. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to sit in the ashes of what was lost. But don't build your home there. Victimhood is not a sanctuary. It's a trap. And the longer you stay, the more it feeds on your peace, your potential, your power. Because the more you blame, the more you give away your power. And the more you reclaim responsibility, not blame but responsibility, the more whole you become. Responsibility doesn't mean the pain was your fault. It means the healing is your task. It means you no longer wait for apologies to move forward. You no longer wait for fairness to find peace. It means you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what can I do with what has happened? That is where transformation begins. Look closely. There are people who have endured unthinkable tragedy, and yet they radiate light, not because they forgot, not because they pretend, but because they chose to rise. They chose not to let the fire consume them, but refine them. They stopped asking the world to change and started becoming the change. This isn't denial. This is spiritual maturity. This is the quiet power of someone who no longer depends on the past to define their present. If you find yourself saying, I can't move on because of what they did, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what am I still feeding inside this pain? What story am I protecting? What would freedom look like if I were willing to release this blame? Because you are not your wound. You are the one who is aware of it, and that awareness is more powerful than anything anyone ever did to you. You don't have to wear your pain like a name tag. You don't have to stay small to stay safe. You don't have to blame in order to feel seen. You are more than what happened to you. And when you stop clinging to the story of pain, you begin to live from the space of peace. Let that be your new story. Before we speak, there is a pause, a sacred space between what we feel and what we do. In that space lies everything: freedom, clarity, peace. But most people skip it. Instead of pausing, they react. Instead of observing, they blame. Instead of looking within, they point outward. And so suffering continues, not because of what happened, but because no one stopped to listen in silence. In Buddhism, silence is not emptiness. It is fullness. It is the ground where truth appears, when the noise of ego fades. Because when we blame, we're actually escaping the discomfort of sitting with what is, escaping the mirror of the present moment, escaping the work of honest self-reflection. And so we shout, we judge, we explain, we defend, but all of it is noise, and beneath the noise is pain that has not yet been seen. Here's a simple but radical truth. You don't have to react to everything you feel. Not every discomfort needs a defense. Not every trigger needs a target. Not every story the mind creates is true. The mind says, they were wrong. This shouldn't have happened. I need to fix this now. But the wise ask, who is feeling this? What part of me is reacting? What am I afraid to see if I just stay silent? Silence is not weakness. It is power. It is the space where the ego dies and the soul speaks. In silence, you begin to see how much of your suffering comes not from the world, but from your interpretations of it. You begin to see how blame is a habit, not a necessity. You begin to see how every trigger is a teacher, not an enemy. But this vision only comes to those who stop running and sit still. There is a story told by Zen monks of a student who asked the master, "Why do I suffer so much?" The master replied, "Because you believe every thought your mind tells you." Silence allows us to watch the mind instead of obeying it when a thought arises. They shouldn't have done that. I'm not good enough. This always happens to me. You simply observe, not push it away, not argue, not follow it. Just observe, and in that observation, the thought loses its grip, because what is seen cannot control you. This is the power of inner observation, the ability to sit in the heat of anger without needing to act on it, the ability to notice the rise of blame without turning it into a story, the ability to feel the waves of sadness without drowning in them. You become the space, not the storm. Every emotion is a visitor, but we treat them like owners. We let them run the house, dictate our words, control our choices. But what if you simply said, "Ah, blame is here, I see you. Anger has arrived, I feel you. Pain is knocking, I welcome you." And then you sit, not to indulge, not to suppress, but to observe, as the Buddha taught. In the stillness of watching, everything arises and everything passes. You don't need to become your feelings. You don't need to become your pain. You are the awareness behind it. When you learn to rest in that awareness, you break the cycle. No more blame, no more defense, just clarity. And from that clarity, right action naturally arises. Not reaction, not control, but presence. And presence heals more than blame ever could. There is strength in holding your tongue. There is wisdom in not responding. There is peace in simply being with what is, without needing to change it. You may be misunderstood. You may feel discomfort. You may be tempted to speak from emotion. But breathe. Let silence speak first. Let your awareness settle before the words rise, because once you've seen clearly, you will only speak what truly matters. Silence is not the absence of voice. It is the presence of truth. Blame may shout, but wisdom whispers. If you can sit still long enough, you will hear it. Acceptance, a word so often misunderstood. To the untrained mind, it sounds like giving up, like weakness, like silence in the face of injustice. But to those who have walked the path within, acceptance is not defeat, it is peace. And peace is not passive. Let's make one thing clear. Acceptance is not about liking everything. It's about not being controlled by everything. It doesn't mean we pretend pain isn't real. It means we stop adding extra pain by resisting what already is. Because the moment we say, "This shouldn't be happening," we start fighting with reality. And when you fight with reality, reality always wins. Think of a storm. You can scream at the clouds, shake your fist at the wind, demand the thunder to stop, but none of that will calm the rain. Now imagine sitting by the window, watching the storm pass through. Still, alert, accepting. Same storm, different relationship to it. That's the wisdom of acceptance. It doesn't stop the storm. It stops you from drowning in it. In Buddhist teachings, the root of suffering is not pain itself, but our resistance to it. We cling to pleasure, we reject discomfort. We say yes to only half of life and no to the other half. But life doesn't follow our script. It flows in season, joy and sorrow, birth and decay, gain and loss. To accept is to return to the natural rhythm of existence. So how do we accept? First, we stop asking life to be fair, according to our definition of fairness. Because fairness to the ego usually means everything should go the way I want. But life was never designed for your comfort. It was designed for your evolution, and sometimes growth requires the discomfort you've been trying to avoid. When things fall apart, a relationship ends, a dream collapses, a truth hits too hard, the reflex is to fight, to blame, to grasp for control. But what if instead you whispered, "This too belongs. This moment is not a mistake. This pain is part of the path, not because you want it, but because it's here. And if it's here, it's your teacher now." Acceptance doesn't mean staying stuck. It means starting from where you actually are, not where you wish you were. When you accept what is, you create the only foundation from which real transformation can happen. You're no longer denying. You're no longer escaping. You're finally present, and presence is where peace begins. Here's the paradox. Only when we stop trying to change everything do we gain the clarity to change what truly matters. Acceptance is not an action, it's intelligent response. Instead of reacting from fear, you respond from awareness. Instead of clinging to should, you move with what is. And in that space, you become unshakable. Think of a monk walking barefoot on a rocky path. He doesn't curse the stones. He doesn't demand the earth be smooth. He simply watches his step, with presence, with grace. He doesn't resist the path. He learns to move with it. That's not passivity, that's mastery. Some say, if I accept, I'll lose my fire, I'll become indifferent. But true acceptance doesn't extinguish the fire, it purifies it. You don't burn in anger, you burn in clarity. You don't lash out, you act wisely. You don't run. You remain still and aware. That's not indifference, that's fierce compassion. When the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree, he wasn't trying to escape the world. He was accepting it fully as it was, without resistance, without clinging. And in that moment of complete surrender, he awakened. Not because life became perfect, but because he stopped demanding that it be. Can you sit with what is without rushing to fix it? Can you feel discomfort without blaming it? Can you hold pain without turning it into identity? If you can, you've already stepped into freedom, because freedom isn't out there. It's here in how you relate to this moment, right here, right now. Some people walk into a room and you feel judged. Others walk in and you feel seen, not for your mistakes, not for your flaws, but for your shared humanity. What's the difference? The first one sees through the eyes of the ego. The second sees through the eyes of compassion, and those are very different eyes. We live in a world addicted to blame. We label quickly. We condemn easily. We cancel loudly. Why? Because condemnation feels powerful. It gives the illusion of moral superiority, of being better, wiser, more enlightened. But what if true wisdom isn't about pointing out what's broken, but understanding why it broke in the first place? Blame closes hearts. Compassion opens them. Blame says, you're wrong, you're the problem. Compassion whispers, you must have suffered a lot to become this way. Compassion doesn't excuse harm, but it understands its roots. Like a gardener who doesn't hate the weed, he simply knows it grew from neglected soil. In Buddhism, compassion is not weakness. It's not being nice to please others. It is fierce clarity with a soft gaze. It sees suffering even when it's hidden behind anger, pride, or cruelty. The one who hurts others has usually been hurt deeply themselves. The one who blames was once blamed. The one who condemns may secretly feel condemned inside. When you see this clearly, you no longer want to fight people. You want to understand them. One day a monk asked the Buddha, "Master, how should we treat those who insult or harm us?" The Buddha replied, "With compassion, because they are already burning with their own pain." You see, compassion doesn't start when someone deserves it. It starts when you realize everyone is carrying something you can't see. Wounds, fears, history, karma, and those things shape their behavior long before you ever meet them. Imagine this. You see someone yelling. You feel the urge to react, to blame, defend, condemn. But then you pause, you breathe, you look deeper, and suddenly, instead of a villain, you see a wounded child trapped inside an adult's body, a child who never felt heard, a child who was punished instead of held, a child who learned to scream because silence meant abandonment. That shift in perception, that's compassion. Compassion doesn't mean you let people walk over you. It means you stop adding more poison to a world already bleeding. It means you stop making everything personal. Because once you realize that people act from their own pain, conditioning, and karma, you stop taking their actions as reflections of your worth. You stop blaming them, and you stop blaming yourself. That is liberation. Here's the paradox. The more you understand others, the less you need to judge them. And the more you understand yourself, the more you forgive them. Because often, what we blame in others is what we haven't healed in ourselves. Their arrogance mirrors your insecurity. Their selfishness reflects your unmet needs. Their control triggers your own fear of losing control. When you see this clearly, judgment melts into compassion, not just for them, but for you too. Seeing others with soft eyes doesn't mean being naive. It means seeing the whole picture. You can still hold people accountable without hate in your heart. You can still speak truth without venom on your tongue. You can still set boundaries without building walls, because boundaries built with compassion heal, boundaries built with blame divide. Let's try something. Bring to mind someone you find hard to love, someone who triggers blame in you. Now imagine, what might their story be? What shaped them? What pain have they carried? What fears do they wake up with at 3 a.m.? Just wondering these questions can soften the sharpness inside you, because curiosity opens the heart. And an open heart sees clearly. You don't need to fix people. You just need to stop making them enemies. And that begins by seeing them not as other, but as another version of you, in a different form, walking a different karmic road. When you start to see this, you begin to smile where you once scowled. You begin to breathe where you once clenched. You begin to free yourself. The world doesn't need more judgment. It needs more understanding. Not a softness that ignores injustice, but a strength that refuses to add more hate. And you have the power to choose to be the flame that burns or the light that warms, to blame or to bless, to condemn or to understand. Somewhere along the path of awakening, there comes a quiet moment. A moment when you stop pointing outward and begin turning inward. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" And instead you ask, "What is life trying to teach me through this?" That shift is the beginning of freedom. We've been taught that taking responsibility means admitting fault, but in truth, it's something far more powerful. It's reclaiming your life from the hands of blame, resentment, and powerlessness. Responsibility is not a burden. It's not guilt. It's not shame, it's liberation. Because when you take full responsibility, not for what happens, but for how you respond, you take your power back. For most of our lives, we're taught to look outside ourselves for the cause of our pain. My parents made me this way. My boss is toxic. My partner doesn't understand me. The world is unfair, and maybe those things are true. But here's the deeper truth. You can't change the past. You can't control others. You can't undo karma that's already rolling, but you can choose who you become in response to all of it. That is the sacred space where transformation begins. Responsibility isn't about blame, it's about ownership. It's saying, "This happened, it hurt. It shaped me, but I decide what I do next." It's the moment you stop being a victim of life and become a conscious participant in it. You stop reacting from old wounds and start responding from wisdom. In Buddhism, karma is not punishment, it's cause and effect, it's energy in motion, and you are not just a receiver of karma. You are a creator of it through your thoughts, your words, your actions. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, forgiveness over vengeance, compassion over blame, you shift your karma, you shape your future. That's power, and it lives in your next breath. Think of responsibility like this. You're in a storm, the sky is dark. The wind is howling, you didn't choose the storm, You didn't cause the weather, but you can choose how you walk through it. You can panic, you can scream, you can blame the sky, or you can breathe. You can take one steady step forward. You can anchor yourself in stillness. That's real power. That's real freedom. Sometimes the most painful moments become your greatest teachers, not because they were meant to happen, but because you chose to grow from them. Responsibility is not passive acceptance. It's active empowerment. It says, "This ends with me. I won't pass this pain to others. I'll become the person I needed when I was hurting." And in that moment, you become the healer, not the harmed, the alchemist, not the victim. There's a story of a monk who was beaten and robbed during his travels. When others asked how he could remain so calm, he said, "They took my robe, they struck my body, but I refused to let them take my peace." You see, peace isn't found in a perfect life. It's found in perfect responsibility. The moment you say, "No one can take from me what I do not surrender," you reclaim your inner kingdom. Let's pause here. Ask yourself, where have I given away my power through blame? What old story am I still telling myself that keeps me small? What am I ready to own, not to feel guilty, but to feel free? And then ask the real question. What does responsibility look like in love, in loss, in conflict, in healing? Responsibility is not control, it's not force, it's the grace of knowing I am the author of my life. You've been through things, deep things, unfair things, but you are still here, still breathing, still listening, still growing. That means your power was never truly lost, only forgotten. And now you remember. Responsibility is saying, I choose what energy I bring into the world. I choose how I speak even when I'm hurt. I choose to heal even when I wasn't the one who broke things. It's knowing you are not your trauma, you are not your past, you are not your pain, you are the awareness that holds all of it with clarity and courage. Wisdom is not something you find in books alone. It's found in footsteps worn into monastery floors, in the breath of a mother choosing patience instead of shouting, in the silence of a man who forgives even when no one says sorry. Wisdom isn't loud, it doesn't perform, but it transforms. And those who walk the path of blame to freedom, they leave traces. Today we follow a few. Story 1, the monk and the soldier. In a war-torn country, a Buddhist monk was arrested by soldiers for hiding villagers in his monastery. He was imprisoned, beaten, tortured. Years later, when asked if he held anger, he smiled gently. "I was most afraid," he said, "not of death, but of losing compassion for my captors." The room fell silent. He didn't excuse their actions, but he refused to let hatred take root in his heart. That is responsibility. That is inner freedom. Story 2, the woman who chose silence. A woman came to a Zen teacher, weary from years of family conflict. Her brother had betrayed her trust, lied about her, and torn the family apart. "I want peace," she said, "but I can't forgive him." The master handed her a cup of tea and asked her to hold it still. As he poured and poured until it overflowed, she jumped up, startled. "You want peace," he said, "but your heart is already full of stories, blame and judgment. There is no space for peace to enter." She didn't speak. That silence was the beginning of her healing. Not all wisdom is dramatic. Some is found in ordinary lives with extraordinary presence. Story 3, the taxi driver who breathed. In Bangkok, a taxi driver was cut off by another car, nearly crashing. Instead of yelling or honking, he smiled and whispered to himself, "May you be safe, may you be free from suffering." The passenger asked, "Why didn't you react?" He said, "My teacher taught me when someone throws fire, don't catch it." That was it. No lectures, no sermons, just breathe and choice. Story 4, the young girl and the candle. In a refugee camp, a little girl lit a single candle each night before sleeping. She had lost her parents, her home, everything. A monk visiting the camp asked her, "What do you wish for when you light the candle?" She said, "I wish that no one will feel as sad as I did, and that I will grow up to help others feel safe." From sorrow, she gave light. From pain, she found purpose. Sometimes the most wounded become the most wise. These stories aren't meant to impress. They're meant to awaken, to remind us. Wisdom isn't some distant mountaintop. It lives in how you treat the person in front of you, how you meet anger with understanding, how you hold yourself when no one else sees. Story 5, the man who stopped the story. A man had spent 10 years resenting his ex-wife. Every time someone mentioned her name, his face would tighten, his voice would harden. One day at a Dharma talk, the teacher said, "Every time you repeat a story of blame, you drink a cup of poison and expect the other to suffer." The man felt seen. That night, he sat with a journal and wrote a letter of release. Not for her, for himself. He didn't send it, he burned it. In the ashes, he felt something unexpected, not closure, but space. These aren't fairy tales, they are footprints left by those who chose responsibility over resentment, observation over accusation, compassion over condemnation. You don't need a monastery to follow them. You need only a moment of presence, a breath. Maybe you've been the one who blamed. Maybe you've been blamed unfairly. Maybe you carry both stories in your heart. Either way, you are not broken. You are awakening. And each time you choose to soften, to pause, to respond instead of react, you take a step on the path of the wise. So as we end this journey, remember, wisdom isn't found in never feeling pain. It's found in what you do with it. Don't seek to be perfect. Seek to be present. Don't seek to win. Seek to understand. And most of all, don't fear responsibility. It is not a punishment. It is the path back to your true self, to the quiet, unshakable light within you that has never blamed, never hated, never needed to be right. That light is who you've always been. Some journeys don't end with fireworks. They end with a whisper, a quiet knowing, a return to something we've never truly lost. This is not the end of a teaching, it's the beginning of remembering. We began with a question, why do we blame? And now, after walking through ego, karma, silence, compassion, and responsibility, we arrive here, not to answer that question with theory, but to dissolve it in presence. Blame is loud, peace is quiet. Blame needs a story, peace just is. When we stop blaming the world, we begin seeing it. When we stop blaming ourselves, we begin healing. And when we stop needing someone to carry our pain for us, we begin to grow the strength to carry it with grace. This is the silent revolution of the wise, not in temples, not in debates, but in the gentle, radical decision to choose peace over power, presence over pride. So here we are, not with answers carved in stone, but with a deeper trust in what arises when we no longer resist. When we take full responsibility, we reclaim the life we gave away in every accusation, every mental replay, every why me. We realize there is no one to blame, only lessons to learn, only moments to meet, only love to return to. A final reflection, close your eyes, if only for a breath. Can you feel it? That space inside you that needs nothing, demands nothing, blames no one. That is home. You've always known the way back. It was never far, just one breath beneath the noise. Narrator shifts tone, slightly more present, inviting but still calm. If this journey spoke to something deep in you, something beyond words, beyond ideas, if it helped you soften blame even just a little, then maybe it wasn't just a video, maybe it was a mirror. And if you feel called to continue walking this path of wisdom, of mindfulness, of truth, then we invite you to walk with us. If this resonated with your heart, you're welcome to subscribe to Zen Buddhism Wisdom. Here, we don't chase noise, we sit with silence. We don't teach dogma, we share the Dharma. One breath at a time, one story at a time. So whenever you're ready, we'll be here, waiting, not to preach, but to walk alongside you.